He pulled out a red keffiyeh and started yelling "Free Palestine." As he was being escorted out, I picked it up and said, "Hey, this is yours." And I gave it back to him. I don't think I would have touched the thing if I had known what he did. But being in a session where we were talking about how Israelis and Palestinians were working together and supporting each other, I felt inspired to say, hey, I don't agree with you, and let's free Palestine from Hamas, but yeah, this is yours. If I could do it again, I don't think I would have touched it.
Welcome to What Came After. I'm your host, Manya Marcus. On What Came After, we'll take a look at the many ways people's lives have changed since the brutal massacre in Israel on October 7th, 2023. We'll be speaking to people around the world to learn how this profound moment in Jewish and global history continues to shift, shape, and change them. To learn more, please visit us at whatcameafter.com. Okay, so it is September 8th, 2025, and I am seated here with Yoni and Jojo. If I share that you guys have the same last name, I guess I'm spoiling the big reveal. You guys are married. Tell me about yourselves and what it is that you do with most of your time.
I'm really fortunate that I have a husband who's really supported me through being an architect of my career and pursuing my passion of writing and storytelling to work for nonprofits and mission-driven organizations. So I get to work in social impact branding and cause marketing. And actually, my newest role really came out of what came after May 21st. And so currently, I'm working as the narrative strategist and senior storytelling officer for the Jerusalem Youth Chorus. And the NGO is based here in DC, but the program is based over there. We bring Israeli and Palestinian youth together through song. And so it's a real antidote to the times. And it's a reminder that it's not all despair. Yoni, how about you?
Hello, my name's Yoni Kalin, born and raised in Washington, D.C. Met lovely Jojo 8 years ago, and we've been married for 3 years. A lot has happened, I guess, since May 21st, but a little bit about me. I run a biotechnology company called Plant Cell Technology based in Washington, D.C. and Utah. For a little context, we manufacture media for stem cells. So whether you're growing plants or animal cells, we are the company that does it, or one of the many that do it. No kids, but we do have a lovely dog named Moe, and we've been residents in the DC area for 1.5 years now.
So I know that you guys sent me some things to watch of press that you did in the aftermath of the shooting of Sarah Milgrim and Yaron Lischinsky. I actually made the decision not to because I wanted to make sure that my curiosity felt really fresh and genuine, but I will say that I didn't know what either of you did, and I made the false assumption, Yoni, that you were in the Jewish institutional space. So I often ask people where they were on October 7th, but I think the place to start with you two is to talk about where you were on May 21st of this year and hear any of your thoughts on it at this point.
Sure. Jojo was really the architect of this event. I was the supporting husband joining this event. So I'm going to let Jojo start with her story and her experience, and I can add details to that.
Yeah, so I was on the 3rd floor of the Capitol Jewish Museum the moment that their lives, may they forever be a blessing, were taken. And the 3rd floor exhibit at this time, it's always the rotating exhibit. And June is Pride Month, and DC got to host World Pride. So we were quite excited that a perk of this event would be that people for free could peruse the exhibits whilst at the event at a time that normally the museum's closed. So it was a wonderful exhibit on the history of LGBTQ plus Jews throughout DC's history. And I was either in that exhibit or in the elevator. The museum volunteer was ushering us out. So I did not hear the shots ring out. I mean, it was like chaotic when the elevators opened, but people didn't quite know what was going on. To add to what Yoni said before I pass the mic to him, I serve in a volunteer capacity with the American Jewish Committee, and I serve on their Young Professional Board. And so this was our marquee event, the Young Diplomats event. And I got involved really in Jewish advocacy once we moved to DC in the post-October 7th landscape. And as I was switching careers and switching roles and working part-time and freelance client work, I really sunk my teeth into also using my skill set in the volunteer space, in the Jewish advocacy space. This particular event, I was on the committee for it and architected the idea of using the phrase, which I didn't coin myself, but kind of applied to this space of turning pain into purpose. So ironically, that theme was to turn my October 7th pain into purpose. It's always a diplomatic event. We have tons of embassies representing represented, as well as staffers who work for congressmen, as well as the State Department. So a really mix of Jewish and non-Jewish young professionals. And the theme was on humanitarian diplomacy.
Yeah, so that's something I actually want to amplify right now, turning pain into purpose, and that the focus of the event was humanitarian diplomacy. I know you're not in this space professionally, but is there anything that you can say, having been at the event or planned it, what is humanitarian diplomacy and what were they discussing at the event itself?
Yeah, I think a big thing about humanitarian diplomacy is you're using some other vehicle or mechanism by which to create diplomatic rapport and relationships, whether that's with another institution, another organization, another nation state, other diplomats. And so in this case, it's really values-based. It's apolitical. So no matter what your stance is, I think we all know as Jews that Hesed, tzedakah has these values, right? Getting aid to those who need it. And what was beautiful is we brought in a organization that Yoni's father, actually, Martin Kalin, serves on the board for. And this is the Multi-Faith Alliance. It was founded by a daughter of Holocaust survivors, and the executive director is a Syrian refugee. So really diverse background, but they both realize that throughout the world, through collaboration, we can get more aid to those who need it. They've worked throughout the Middle East, but their first time working in Gaza, Palestine, Israel area. And so this will by no means create a new Middle East, but they have a coalition of Israelis and Palestinians working together, and they've gotten over 300 trucks of aid into Gaza undeterred. Of course, that was before any of the blockades. And the reason I think it works so well is because of this triangulation. The Multi-Faith Alliance is the intermediary, and then you have Israel, the largest aid distribution organization in Israel, who knows how to navigate the bureaucracy of COGAT. And then you have this wonderful woman named Sarah, and she's a Palestinian woman who is able to help really navigate the culture on the ground there to get the aid directly into the hands of, they literally have lists of names. So it's a really unique project, and it's funded through the Multi-Faith Alliance, and they've started this initiative called MENA Aid. And it was just an antidote to a lot of despair. It's like, okay, some people are figuring it out, and that doesn't fix everything. It's not a salve for everything, but it was a little nugget of hope.
It's really exciting. I mean, I have to say, it's just energizing to hear these phrases, antidote to despair, turning pain into purpose, and then to know what happened is just such a... Yoni, it sounds like you were like a double +1, like a +1 for Jojo, but also this is something that your father has been involved in. Why don't you tell us what it was like for you to be at this event?
Well, first off, I think seeing organizations like the Multi-Faith Alliance in action is inspiring. It gives us hope that we can work past politics and focus on humanitarian efforts. At the end of the day, whether or not you agree with bringing aid into Gaza, in my opinion, the only way that Israel can continue their operations is by making sure people aren't starving, getting food to the families that need it. So I believe that this was a mechanism and a political apparatus that's important to support the people on the ground that need it and obviously circumvent the organizations trying to take advantage of the people, being Hamas. With that being said, I happen to be a +1 and I was excited for the event, but I didn't really know what to expect. But I was on the first floor, right by the exit. I remember it was pouring rain. The sounds of the shots were quite muffled. And I grew up in Washington, D.C., so hearing the occasional gunshot isn't particularly alarming. It's something that we grew up regularly hearing. I think the amount of gunshots was a little bit confusing. I thought it might have been fireworks or firecrackers, something. My naive mind didn't want to jump to the immediate conclusion that people were being murdered. With that being said, I was near my friend Paige and she immediately clocked, those are gunshots, something's wrong. I did see some people start to scramble, and I did notice one of the people in the front of the museum went outside, came back in very flustered. So things were a little bit tense, whereas at this time we thought it was local crime. Right? We're downtown where there tends to be more crime. It's pretty insane to think that those bursts that I heard were not fireworks, but gunshots, and actually happened to inflict wounds and eventually take lives of people. And I think what's even more eerie about the whole thing is none of us really knew what happened until much later, where we started checking our phones and checking Twitter and seeing what was going on. And that's when we started to hear more news. And there's a lot of conspiracy theorists out there, but we have friends that watch the video footage, and the video footage was very telling of what exactly happened.
Is there footage of the shooting itself?
There is footage, but the cops have obviously prevented it from being seen. I guess the volunteers at the museum weren't necessarily sure how to pick it up. And one of my friends is good at working computers, and she instantly found the security footage and unfortunately saw the whole thing. I'm not going to speak for her experience, but I know it's probably disturbing to see that happen.
The video footage to which you were referring was in the aftermath when we didn't know 2 lives had been taken and he came into the museum. Our friend Katie pulled out her phone and recorded. But just to clarify, there's 2 different levels of footage.
So there's the CCTV footage and the security footage, which I personally did not see, but I was part of the process. Originally, I walked up to the security desk with my two friends who were looking through, trying to get back and see where the tape started from the shooting. And then there's footage that my friend Katie took of the shooter when he came inside. At this point, none of us had any idea who this guy was. Really, I just thought he was another protester, and I kind of laughed it off. And
This is the footage that I saw, and I'm so glad to have found both of you and that you are a package deal. But one of the things that I asked the producer of the show to do, if there was any way to do so, to find the man who, this murderer has started to say, free, free Palestine, and somebody is yelling from Hamas. Yoni, that was you.
guilty.
Yeah, innocent. I mean, that was you. I understand that you didn't realize at the time that he was truly homicidal, but what allowed you to think on your feet like that? When I imagine being confronted with a protester in such a way, I don't know if I would have had the presence of mind to clarify my political position so clearly in the midst of such a disturbing moment.
Because of the theme of the event being turning pain into purpose and the idea of connecting humanitarian ideals, sure, we can free Palestine, absolutely. But from Hamas, we need to free them from the terrorist entity that is preventing peace and preventing the people in Gaza from living quality lives. And I'm not saying they're the only responsible party, but I'd say they're the main responsible party in a lot of this. I've been to enough of these protests and been surrounded by enough people that yell Free Palestine, so we should be able to contribute our own slogan to it, and it's Free Palestine from Hamas. I'm post October 7th, my heart is hardened, and it's been a lot harder to empathize with ideas and movements that I don't agree with. So, unfortunately, this event has hardened my heart a little bit further, but I'm trying to push myself to be more empathetic and more open-minded to new ideas. And maybe saying Free Palestine from Hamas doesn't fix that, but it might be a little bit more amenable to some people.
My one addition to that would be, it does make me giggle. And I think if we can't laugh, we cry. So there's something about, we've all heard that chant so much. And for someone to be able to counter with that, it just adds an element of levity. I really like the use of unconventional, whether it's art or comedy, to deal with really heavy shit.
I think some of the irony of it all is in the aftermath, some of the conspiracy websites thought I worked for Mossad. And then some of the other websites thought I worked with the shooter. So people have a million ideas of what's running through your head. But I think all of us just froze when he walked in. None of us knew what to expect.
But this is the thing that I find so remarkable, is that you didn't freeze. He started to say something. You amended it in a way that I found really powerful. Thank God somebody is saying this, because at least I feel that way. But also the reason that people had these ideas about you, they were able to project so much onto you, was what did he throw onto the ground that you picked up?
Yeah, so one of my less proud moments, if you will. So he pulled out a red keffiyeh and started yelling Free Palestine. As he was being escorted out, I mistakenly picked it up in the moment as an act of humanitarianism and said, hey, this is yours.
You gave it back to him.
I gave it back to him. And I think part of that was to show if they go low, we go high. Whether or not I agree with what this symbolizes or what this is, it's part of your cause. And again, pre-knowing that he was a murderer, right? I don't think I would have touched the thing if I had known what he was capable of and what he did. But being in a session where we were talking about how Israelis and Palestinians were working together and supporting each other, I felt inspired to say, hey, I don't agree with you, and let's free Palestine from Hamas, but yeah, this is yours. If I could do it again, I don't think I would have touched it. It definitely created a lot of conspiracies, and some people were mad at me. I had a lot of family members say, why did you pick it up? Why did you interact in a positive way with this guy? I just knew he was a protester coming in. Definitely an interesting moment. He was very much in a fit of rage, if you will. I don't think any sense was coming into his mind. He was almost paralyzed in speech and very... hypnotized is probably the word I was looking for. I mean, after you just murdered two people, you come in, you probably have a lot of adrenaline running. I don't think he heard anything anybody was saying, let alone processed anything around him.
Jojo, this is all happening. You're on a separate floor. Tell me when you were reunited with Yoni and what you guys thought had been happening.
It all unfolded rather quickly. I was playing hostess. The event was wrapping up. Half or 3/4 of the people have left at this point, but we left the museum open. Essentially, the way the run of show went is people showed up. You have a happy hour. and food and hors d'oeuvres so that people can mingle and network. And then after about an hour of that, the main programming of hearing from the speakers, I think that lasted about 30 minutes. I did the opening remarks. Then we hear from the panel speakers who were from this MENA Aid Project. Hope, who came from Multi-Faith Alliance, and she oversees their programming. And then people were mingling more. And so I really wanted to see that exhibit. So I pop up, and then the volunteers like, okay, we're wrapping up. We got to shut down. We're striking the event. What Yoni just added is that he wanted to go home 10 minutes before the shooting. And that was before I went upstairs to the exhibit. So I remember talking to you outside the elevator, and I said, well, I hosted this event. I can't go, but you're free to leave. Thanks so much. I'll meet you at home. And so once I came down, I didn't find you right away. I guess the way that he who shall not be named moved through the building is that he did sit on the bench up front for a while. I never witnessed him there, but our friend did. She immediately had her antenna up from what she's told us in the aftermath of being like, we should have shut down the perimeter and not let anyone in. I didn't see him until he moved further toward the back. And at this point, like we said, we're striking the event for the most part, but not all of it's been taken up. And he's standing by this table. And my instinct was, this guy looks unwell. And I just presumed that he was a bystander. And I looked him in the eye and I asked, do you need water? And he looked back at me. He seemed so off. And he said, yeah, that'd be great. So I walked over to the bar, which was pretty much cleaned up. And I was like, there's a guy here. He's experienced whatever happened outside. We really need to get him water. Really something I'll continue to grapple with. Water is a symbol of life. And this is a person who possessed no reverence for the sanctity of life. And when I handed it off to him and walked back to that table, our hands brushed. And so I don't know if that was the hand that pulled the trigger. We both had very close proximity with a murderer. How many people are that proximal with a murderer?
Well, especially the fact that you really didn't know. It's not clear in the footage how little is known and how much interaction has happened. And I'm assuming that at this time he still had a weapon.
At this point, he gets his water. People are hanging out for a couple minutes, and he's looking around. At one point, he was like, somebody call the cops.
He wanted somebody to call the police.
He wanted the cops to come. As soon as the cops walked in, he said, officer, I'm unarmed. I did this. Free Palestine. And then he starts his chanting. A third party, you'd probably assume the gunshots were connected to this guy, but none of us really made that connection at the time. But our understanding is he threw the gun in the bush before he went inside. There are metal detectors that we had to walk through to come inside. I don't know if the security guards made him walk through it to come back in, but there should have been a police car outside, and they shouldn't have let anybody back into the building. But thank God he didn't have a weapon on him inside, because that would have been terrifying.
This is another question that's worth exploring at some point, that what are we going to do? Like, Jews going to build fortresses around every single event? So it's a balance, right? It's a balancing act of having the police car outside. He was pacing outside. That should have been caught, securing the perimeter, and also not blocking ourselves away. And like, that's an interesting duality. But I will say that when this all transpired, we were told to go to the back of the building, and they were shutting the blinds and locking the doors. So there were some security measures happening.
So you didn't see the shooting, but you guys did really brush shoulders with this person. Is that the part of the evening that haunts you?
For me, yes. I remember I was worried, am I ever going to drink water again and not think about it? I can assure all of our listeners that I can. There have been moments where it's very visceral and it's very physical. Fortunately, it's dissipated, but it was stark in the first week or two of the aftermath.
Yoni, what about you? What stays freshest or haunts you the most?
Well, there's always this thought of how do you respond if a terrorist attack happens or if something life-changing occurs. And I did find my words, and I'm glad I didn't use physicality. I mean, sometimes I think, what if I tackled him to the ground or threw the water in his face or did something to show how evil he is? But again, I don't know if facing violence with violence would solve the issue. And I could be hit with a felony. You know, you never know. I do think sometimes I wish I played more of the hero and did more to take him down. But I didn't know what I didn't know. And so obviously I can't go back and tell old Yoni, this is the guy that murdered 2 people, and handle him. But I wish it didn't happen more than anything. Definitely changed the trajectory of our lives in the sense that this was the first time in my life being Jewish actually does come at a cost. My whole life I felt pretty safe, and I didn't think there was too much anti-Semitism in my life, but it finally came home to roost, and I could experience it pretty, unfortunately, gruesomely. It scares me. When we have a family and we're in Jewish spaces, are we safe? I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to keep going to synagogue. I'm going to keep going to Jewish spaces, and I'm not going to be scared. But it's something to think about. When people who are yelling Free Palestine or Intifada Revolution, I push back on them. I'm like, I could have died. That person is yelling the same slogan that you're yelling, and they're justifying that to murder people in America, in Washington, D.C., in a museum, right? This is not a war zone.
Right.
We are not in Gaza. We are not in Israel. We are in America. This doesn't happen here, and it shouldn't happen here, and it's not acceptable. I've lost a lot of friends and a lot of relationships from people who have jumped to a side without really understanding what they're getting into.
So I want to zoom out for a second. I have a feeling that you guys, even just based on your interest in visiting the third floor of the museum and seeing the LGBTQ exhibit, at least have at some point identified as progressives. Is that the case?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I joke these days, I'm a recovering social justice warrior. And like we said, if you can't laugh, you cry. But there's been a real cognitive dissonance where I felt a lot of frustration in this post-October 7th landscape of people were willing to do so much unlearning after the unjust killing of George Floyd, of dismantling the racism is because we don't live in a vacuum. They felt that's been imbued into them. Just when I mentioned that kind of parallel to my sisters, they were like, what are you talking about? As if anti-Semitism isn't insidious and pernicious.
Meaning your sisters were surprised at the comparison between...
I'm one of 6. Yoni's an only child. I also didn't divulge this, but I did convert. I'm a Jew by choice, but I've been corrected by a rabbi in Israel. He said we're all Jews by choice, and some of us are choosing to live it every day and others aren't. So I have to find a new fun way to call myself a convert. I think what we love in principle versus practice can really look different. So in principle, when I was going through conversion, I really didn't have a rough road. My parents were supportive. It's fun to come to a holiday at a wedding and do the hora. My mom feels like it's deepened her faith and her walk. My dad, come to find out, was just being the disciplinary of the family when he made us go to church every Sunday. When I started dating Yoni, he goes, I always wondered if Jesus was the son of God. And I was like, bro, you really buried the lead here.
Jojo, where are you from?
I'm from North Carolina.
Okay.
And so he really does talk like that. Yoni can attest. And then October 7th happens. And so I didn't really have the muscle flexed yet of dealing with anti-Semitism or dealing with friction with my family. Everyone was just like hunky-dory about the whole thing, which is awesome. They were progressive. They were open-minded. But when push comes to shove, what it looked like in practice, I had one sister who leaned in with curiosity, and in November, when they had the largest gathering of Jews on the Hill, she asked me why I would even have attended that. She now understands why I would have, and we've had to talk through that, but it was the first time I felt like my sister didn't see me. I'm trying not to cry. It was a lot of cognitive dissonance for me. And then my little sister just levied a lot of condemnation. And I've decided that I'm not going to be able to convince her of things. The repair is building a stronger foundation of our relationship. And hopefully by just being around us, maybe that'll move some mental furniture for her. But for a while, I felt a lot of responsibility immediately after October 7th as a convert to like be a bridge. And it was really emotionally exhausting. And that was another thing that probably haunted me after May 21st of, did I choose this for my future children? I talked to my conversion rabbi. Rabbi Holtzbach is amazing. I wasn't saying I was regretting my conversion, and she reminded me that both can be true. I can both be scared about that and still feel really resolute in my decision, and they can coexist.
I want to pause for a second and just say that talking about your decision to become Jewish, it's a topic that you really wanted to dig into in this conversation. I also want to say that the friction that you're describing within your own family is something that many Jewish families, born Jewish families, are also contending with. And I don't know if that part of the story is getting out there right now, but the amount of friction and schism within the established Jewish community is really painful. And in some ways, what you're describing feels similar to those of us who were born into it.
I joined a Jewish support group for a while, but it's supportive and it helps you realize you're not living in a vacuum. And that wasn't isolated to just converts or just to me.
Right.
And I feel bad that a lot of people are struggling with that. It was weirdly comforting, like, okay, it's not just me.
Yoni, I want to ask you something. You grew up in the Jewish world. You said that until May 21st, you didn't feel like you were unsafe in America as a Jew. I think a lot of us felt unsafe actually right after October 7th. Did you not have that experience, or was it just...
October 7th is when I officially realized that my Jewish identity could, to some extent, be at odds with other people's beliefs, opinions, values. And then May 21st was the amplification of that. We were living in Miami on October 7th. So we instantly jumped into Jewish support. We were going to warehouses, packing supplies. We were going to Chabad. We were going to vigils. We were with a community that was mourning and grieving and put into action. So I felt very connected and very activated around a community that was very strong. We have a very large community in Miami. As soon as we moved back to DC, Intifada posters everywhere, the resistance, genocide,
Apartheid.
Everybody and their grandmother wearing a keffiyeh. So that was a big slap in the face, even though I grew up in Washington, D.C. I'm familiar with the territory, but it felt worse as an adult and as somebody that understands the issue and understands the symbolism. I really got to the point where I couldn't take it. And so I did create boundaries for myself, one of which being like, I love my extended family, but I don't want to talk politics when it comes to Israel-Palestine. You mentioned, are we recovering progressives? I was raised in a very egalitarian home. We grew up conservative Jews. We went to synagogue, but we also had friends that were Palestinian, friends that were Syrian that we would host and spend time with, and some of which are speaking out against Israel. And so that part of the humanitarian aspect and the friendship and relationship building doesn't change for me. I still have Palestinian friends that I disagree with on a lot of topics, but we're humans and we can still love each other. Where I'm frustrated is the political landscape of the United States and people that have no connection to the issue suddenly becoming experts and telling me what I should be thinking and how I should be feeling. And that's where I feel unsafe. And that's where I feel like, we're coming back to Germany here, where everybody is starting to use the word Zionist in conjunction with bigotry or in conjunction with racism, and therefore acts of violence against Zionism are okay.
It's so interesting to hear somebody who was so proximate to a murder scene talk about unsafety in ideological pressure. I have a question. It may be difficult or sensitive, and if you don't want to answer,
Sure.
Please don't. After October 7th, getting brought back into the tapestry of Jewish persecution and violence, did you ever worry that being with a partner who had not been born Jewish, that she wouldn't really understand what it was bringing up for you in terms of epigenetic or intergenerational trauma?
It's a great question. I think experiencing the level of persecution and violence and hysteria around the post-October 7th landscape was amplified being with somebody that wasn't born Jewish, because she was seeing it for the first time. But this was like her sense of hazing. Like, all right, you're getting
Quite
hit
a
with
haze,
it. I
quite
didn't
a haze.
experience persecution growing up. I didn't experience this level of hatred. I went to a very progressive high school. Israel-Palestine wasn't really talked about. But now it's gotten to the point where violence is okay because violence is resistance. And so having Jojo see this happen, I feel more empowered because through Jojo's family, we have allies. We have people in North Carolina that love us, people in Nebraska that love us, people that might not have met Jews that are intimately related to us that can become allies. And same with my employees in Utah. A lot of them reached out to me after the shooting because they all saw me on Fox News or some of the stations, and they're like, we're praying for you. I felt empowered and loved by people that didn't necessarily have Jewish people in their lives. And so I think it's my purpose and Jojo's purpose to make those connections with people that don't know Jews and to bridge build, because Jojo can walk in any room as a Jew and as somebody that doesn't necessarily look immediately Jewish and be able to share that experience. And I think that's incredibly unique and difficult. And at the end of the day, I don't know anybody doing bridge building better than she can.
That was really beautiful. You wanted to talk about this. You wanted to talk about the immense appreciation and inspiration you draw from people who've decided to become Jewish after October 7th. What do you want to share about your story? And what do you want to share about how the murders on May 21st affirmed or challenged your Jewish identity?
Thank you so much for that question. I struggled at first through my conversion process. So I really was worried people were going to just assume, oh, she's just doing it because she's with someone who's Jewish. And really reclaiming my own story and realizing I actually, before meeting Yoni, took an intro to Hebrew linguistics course because I was questioning the religion that I grew up with. Why not go to the source? And upon meeting you, one thing you shared is that Israel means to wrestle with God. And a big thing that I struggled with growing up Presbyterian was I kept getting in trouble in Sunday school for asking too many questions. So when Yoni's like, that's welcome here, I was like, oh, well, sign me up. This is great. These sound like my people. I think I had all the elements of a Jewish soul. I just don't know if I would have had the chutzpah to walk through the threshold, and Yoni kind of being my like catalyst. And so when I reframed it that way, it was much more empowering. And so jumping off my own story, I then have been a conversion mentor, and I have my mentee. I attended her mikvah and really just so moved because she chose after October 7th to pursue this. And I think that speaks to Jewish peoplehood. It speaks to the strength of the ritual and the tradition, and that while there is a lot of fear and there is a lot of despair right now, people are still finding Jewish joy. And I think these are emblematic of that. And she was finding soul nourishment from this. She would rather take on a Jewish identity and the collateral that comes with than not be Jewish. It's something to behold. And there was a second part to your question.
I was asking whether or not the event on May 21st affirmed or challenged your decision.
I mean, it definitely did both. It challenged it, but then ultimately affirmed it, right? So with navigating that particular challenge of the legacy that will be imbued into my children, it just reinforced that I don't regret my choice. And I think sitting in the question is like one of the cruxes of being Jewish. I feel actually so much that I reaffirmed my choice that I redid the prayers for the conversion mikveh and like reclaimed and recommitted to that. So ultimately through the wrestling, like Jacob wrestled with the angel and then got the name Israel. I feel like I wrestled through something and then reaffirmed it.
You're wearing a necklace.
Says Mazal.
Okay, so for those who don't know, Mazal means luck, fortune. We're here talking about double murder, and you're wearing that necklace. What do you want to say about your choice of jewelry right now?
I've worn this before this happened, and I continue to wear it. And I can't say that there was any luck that came out of this event, but I will say that it's an emblem from your grandmother of really feeling like she loved and accepted me, and she bestowed this to us before our wedding. I know that there are no silver linings for Sarah Yaron's family. And I also know that we're lucky to be alive, and I don't take that for granted. And honestly, like even now at life milestones like weddings or a beautiful sunset, I cry thinking that that has been cut short and robbed from Sarah and Yaron. But I keep it around my neck because it's a sign of my identity and my heritage and the family that I've chosen and that we're building together.
So you guys are recently back from a trip to Europe. For the podcast, we were in Europe in February, and everybody said, be safe. The sense that the European diaspora is in danger was just something that I was hearing everywhere when I was traversing my spaces in Chicago. Did you feel safe in Europe? How are you navigating a sense of safety anywhere you are?
Sure. So we went to Eastern Europe. We went to Romania. So in Bucharest, at the club, there was a lot of Arab music. So loved it. That was awesome. No problems there. And walking through the streets of Romania, no problems there. I mean, was my chai out and open? No. I didn't wear it out of my shirt. But thanks to Jojo, when we were in Brasov, we went to the synagogue. And it was one of the most beautiful synagogues I've ever seen in my life. Of course, we made a donation. We wanted to support the community. There was a cute little kosher restaurant, a center for Jewish community events, and of course, a memorial for October 7th. May their memories be a blessing. I asked the caretaker, if you will, of the synagogue, how big is the community? He said around 250. And I said, how has it been in Romania? How do you feel after October 7th? How is the safety? He's like, it's great. You know, we have great relations with the Christian community. We have great relations with the Muslim community. They have no problems. And I was very surprised, very, very surprised by that. Now, Brasov is not a huge city. But with that being said, I saw Jewish stars spray painted. I saw Hebrew written, and I didn't see any X's. I didn't see any free Palestines. I didn't see any of the usual graffiti that covers or blames or demonizes. So I was pleasantly surprised with that. Now, we were considering traveling to other places, but I have family in England and I do have family in France, and they're struggling. The biggest issues are there. As we know, France and England have become very radicalized, if you will. And then Australia is extra bad. My cousin just experienced a full-on anti-Semitic attack in a parking lot. And then South Africa, I don't know how much longer my family will be there, just seeing how the government has shifted. And I feel for my family in the Jewish diaspora that has lived really at peace in these countries for maybe a few hundred years. A lot of us fled after 1492 and the Inquisition. Some went to South Africa, some went to Greece, some went to other parts of Europe, some went to Israel. But long story short, it's gotten worse. To tell you the truth, when I was in Israel a couple months ago, I felt safer there than I do here.
I believe it. Have you guys thought at all about moving to Israel?
So Jojo's been wanting to make Aliyah for months. What I told her is if I can generate enough business in Israel, God willing, there's a lot of biotechnological research, cell culture, media, drip irrigation. There's just booming ag tech opportunities. So I would love to do more work there. And in the Middle East in general, a lot of the Gulf states, UAE specifically, Saudi, they're very interested in this technology. So I think there's a lot of bridge building opportunities using technology, which I'm extra excited about, and being able to work with both Israeli companies and partner them with some of these Middle Eastern or other Gulf states that are interested and willing to. But I don't necessarily see it in the cards yet for me. I know Jojo really loves it, and I love it too. I just think there's so many things in America that I take for granted that make it a little bit hard to leave, but I'll let you speak to that, Joe.
Yeah, I came back from volunteering in Israel in December 2023, and I was like, so when are we making Aliyah? Which is like a crazy thing to say after October 7th.
I think a lot of people felt that way.
We were just so slapped in the face by this darkness of being in Miami and then moving to DC. And there's something about not having to explain yourself, not having to tiptoe. It's not all a monolith. Of course, there's tons of debates happening amongst the Israeli people. I will not discount that. I mean, we were there in April and we couldn't make it to dinner in Florentine. because the protests. And there's something so transcendent about being in the settings of the stories that you grew up with from the Torah. I never get over it. I will say we were in Spain last summer, and it was really quite a foil to Romania. And we went in September for a wedding. And there were signs up for a celebration on October 7th. So we have experienced your question about what it feels like in other parts of Europe. And Romania, we're just so used to seeing Free Palestine all over Spain and other places that when we were walking down one road and we just saw a lot of Jewish stars or like Heart Israel, we were like, what's going on?
Maybe instead of Israel, you guys could move to Romania.
No. But definitely not moving to Transylvania.
It's a lot of pork there.
It's too much pork.
We've had there's a lot of breadth and depth here. Is there anything that you guys want to end with?
Yeah, so while I do want to acknowledge that my heart is hardened, I haven't given up on the humanitarian connection that the Jewish people and the Arab people share. And I do have faith that we'll figure it out one day. My only hope is that less people will die and suffer, and we can just live peacefully as Jews in Israel soon. And people on the other side, the Palestinians, can have self-determination and figure out a way to live side by side with us peacefully. I'm doing my best to try to soften my heart and try to be a better human and try to look across the aisle a little bit more, but it's hard. After October 7th, I never felt such solidarity, and I just hope we can continue to back each other. Like, we have to stick together at the end of the day.
I'm going to echo all those sentiments. If the people who experience this depraved act of anti-Semitic violence cannot lose sight of their humanity, I hope others are inspired to not lose sight of theirs also. I'm not saying that I feel that way every day, but I just want to echo and reiterate that. You know, we know intellectually that trauma changes the brain. It's another thing entirely to experience it. And this is one experience. The people who live in Israel who've been through October 7th, who've been through all these different wars, like, puts that in perspective for me too. If I'm feeling this big afterwards and this is one incident, it really extrapolates out and you think about people who've been through so much more, the trauma of the reservists who are going back into Gaza again or into Lebanon. I hope that makes people think more about what we're doing to help soldiers in PTSD. And then also I'll add to that we don't really live in a culture that knows how to deal with grief and trauma, despite the fact we've all been through so much worldwide. If you should be talking to someone who knows someone from Nova or October 7th or any other anti-Semitic incident, I think often people just want to feel seen and not invalidated. And so just listening, and it feels awkward to lean into it and ask more questions, they'll tell you if they don't want to talk about it anymore. I would leave with that as well. I think that knowing how I want to process this with my community and with people, I want to say that out loud for other people. Who knows what they've been through since October 7th. Yeah.
Thank you both so much for taking the time. You are recently back on this continent and things have been very busy for you guys. So I just appreciate you sitting down and making the time.
Well, we appreciate the stories that you're platforming and telling, and just so appreciate you tracking us down and coordinating with us.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe to What Came After wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us online at whatcameafter.com.
We've come a long way since Noah's days, where the land was rough and no one prayed. Oh Lord, won't you take me home? The land was full of death and sin, and no one was listening. Oh Lord, won't you take me home? Pray on for my brothers, pray on for my lovers, pray on for the time that we're redeemed. Pray on for my lovers, pray on for my brothers, pray on for the time that we're redeemed. You had my heart from the start, ain't no one can break apart. I will be yours every day. I want the world to believe, I'm begging you on my knees, please save us today. Told Noah to build an ark to give the world a brand new start. Oh Lord, won't you take me home? He said, Lord, I'm just a man, but Tell me your master plan and I'll go. Take me home. Pray on for my brothers. Pray on